From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Danda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable. So in today's episode, I've got a very special guest, somebody who's well on their way on their journey towards entrepreneurship. It is early days for him, so we're going to be really delving into what made this person start their journey, where are they at the moment, and where are they going to get to. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest today, John Lee. Hey, John, how you doing?
Hey, Paddy. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, no, you're welcome, John. I'd love to know a little bit about your background, your journey up until now, and yeah, just to get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. My journey has been pretty windy. I graduated college with an animal science degree, so in biology. And then in my 20s, I traveled a bit, worked in different sectors, the nonprofit sector, in social welfare, and I lived abroad for a couple of years in Korea. I went to grad school for business, and that was the foot in the door to a corporate career. I'm from America. I grew up in New York, and I've been doing product management for the past 6 or 7 years. So in that tech space, and it took me a while to find this kind of work, but I think finally in my middle to late 30s, I'm lucky to have found work that I really enjoy and I think is a good fit for my personality and my interests. So it can take some time, but we'll get there in the end. And along the way, entrepreneurship has also been an interest of mine. I think since grad school, it was a brand new thing I discovered really in my late 20s. I thought it'd be great to own my own business one day. And it's taken, again, many years to actually take the step, but I took that step maybe 3 years ago now to try to build something on my own. And that's evolved over time, but I relaunched the business in January of this year. It's called custommobile.app. And basically we make branded mobile apps for podcasters like yourself. So if any of your listeners are also content creators, you can check that project out at custommobile.app.
Oh, fantastic. I was just checking out your website, actually. It looks really amazing. One of the things that I noticed was it's a platform to help build a community around the podcast. Would that be a true statement? And how important is that in today's age, do you think?
I think that's one of the benefits of having your own mobile app. The benefits of having an app, in my opinion, are like the benefits of having a website, which are pretty much table stakes at this point. If you have a show or a business and you want to monetize that project, you need a website, right? Because that's where your audience, your listeners are going to be coming to, hopefully, to learn more about you and ultimately convert. And whatever that means for the show or for the business. It could be buying something. It could be signing up to a newsletter. It could be becoming a financial supporter. So that conversion happens only on your property. If that's the website, that's where it happens. And that's where you want to be driving your audience. But if you have the means to have a mobile application, then that's just another more intimate piece of property that you can be inside the pockets of your listeners. And I think for the most part, it's been too expensive to have your own mobile app, but technology has really come a long way in the past couple of years and it's become a lot more accessible and affordable. So I think we're probably the most affordable option in the market for a business to have their own mobile app, whether you're a podcaster or even like a Main Street business, a storefront, to have your own mobile app. Back in the day, to build one from scratch could be well over $100,000. But we offer a branded mobile app at a subscription rate of $25 a month. So it's really come down in cost and speed to publish to the app stores.
Got it. And I know podcasting is huge at the moment. It's nowhere near as popular as YouTubing, but I'm sure it will get there eventually. And one of the reasons I set this podcast up was just seeing that demand. And at that time, it was a couple of years ago when I started my first podcast, just seeing the trends and the explosion of podcasts. And I feel like in the UK, we're still a little bit behind the US. I see so many people in the US doing this and having lots of success. So I think we're catching you up, but still quite far behind. And I guess from your perspective, what made you launch this particular app? Was there a moment where you had this kind of eureka moment and felt like, hey, this is the one idea that's going to hit it big? What was that?
Well,
If you could
Yeah,
tell
so
us
that's
something.
how I started. I
Right.
alluded to the fact that the business has evolved over the past 2 or 3 years since I started it, but I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. I got into it, maybe even 7 or 8 years ago, started listening to podcasts. I've been listening to audio for a long time, actually, downloading MP3 files, loading them onto my USB media player, and listening while exercising or doing the chores. So that's been a part of my life for quite a while. So podcasting was a great fit. I was a power listener. And back when I thought I'd build my own product, I thought, what's missing? And the thing that I saw was missing was the social aspect to podcast listening. So every once in a while, I'd hear something and I want to share it with my family and friends. And back a couple of years ago, that was pretty difficult. It's easier now, but I thought, why can't I, as a listener, make a clip of an episode, share it with family and friends, just have that experience be really seamless. So that was the initial intuition that I ran with. And I wanted to build what I think came to be known as a social podcast app, basically a listening app where a normal listener could do everything you could on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but you could also interact with other listeners, and you could also share content with other listeners and your family and friends very easily. So I wanted to integrate social media, the existing platforms, into the listening app. So it would be like a seamless listening experience. That was the initial idea. I got some validation for it and I started building it. But as time passed, I saw other apps come and go, very similar concepts, social features being added to existing applications. And then I didn't see very much success with those features. Even today, I haven't checked in a while, but I don't think social features inside podcast listening apps are very popular or very used very much. And so I had to make a hard decision last year, whether to continue on the path or pivot to something that's going to be more viable, sustainable as a business, and made the decision, since we had the shell of an app, maybe we can brand this app for podcasters. Because I did come across a few big shows that had the means to have their own mobile app. They'd say, you can listen to us on Apple and Google and even on our own app. You could find us on the app stores. But those were the biggest shows that had the means to build their own app. So tested that idea for a couple of months and had just enough interest where I thought, oh, maybe there's something here. So we rebranded the website and relaunched the marketing page in January. And I've been slowly, by word of mouth, really just me directly reaching out to podcasters, finding interested folks who want an app for their show to increase their brand awareness maybe, but like I said, for the most part, it's a business tool. It's a way to convert listeners, an existing audience, to becoming customers and more engaged fans. That's where I see the value proposition of having your own podcast, your own branded app on the app stores. So that's the quick evolution of the product from the beginning to what it is now. And even now, I have hopes that by word of mouth, the news will spread and folks will see the value of having a mobile app for their shows, but there's no guarantee that this is going to be a thing and be viable. But I'm taking it step by step, day by day, one client at a time, and we'll see where it goes.
Got it. And you mentioned something there about you validated the idea before you then went ahead and into a slightly different direction. So sounds like we started somewhere based on some learning, based on some feedback. We pivoted and evolved the idea. How did you seek that validation? Because some people tend to reach out to their friends and family. Is that what you did, or did you go beyond that?
So that's been a great learning opportunity for me too. From where I started to what I've learned about customer discovery, it's been worth the experience. So in the very beginning, I made a landing page, a sign up form, and I pretty much mocked up the app I wanted to build, that social podcast app, and it made it look as realistic as I could. And I tried to get that marketing page in front of as many people as I could, podcast listeners, podcasters. There was a lot of posting on Reddit, posting on social media, emailing directly the page to as many folks as I could. And I got what I thought was a decent sign up number. I got well over 500 signups based on that marketing page. And I thought, wow, that's pretty good. Maybe that's a signal. That must be a signal. It must be signaling some interest in this product, which doesn't exist, but it was the thing that I wanted to build. And that on top of the emotional and psychological desire to build something, I really wanted to build something too badly. It was that skewed my interpretation of that. I didn't validate that number and get it in front of as many people as I should have. And I didn't take the time to niche down to who my target customer, my target users were. All that work wasn't done in the beginning, which led to the mistake of building the wrong thing. But the second time around, I think I got a little bit better. So when I was testing out the idea of, do podcasters want a branded app for their shows? Well, I knew my target audience. That was pretty specific. Those were podcasters. So I was specifically reaching out to podcasters and asking them, does this make sense to you? Would you be interested in us building you a branded app for your show? And it was hard work to get in touch with many podcasters. But like I said, we got a few beta partners through that outreach, enough to build a couple of branded custom apps. And then from there, I guess you would say the acquisition rate was not high, but it was one client or one beta partner every 2-3 weeks. And it was consistent. And I wasn't doing any massive outreach. I didn't have the means to. There was no advertising or anything like that. It was just direct messaging folks one by one. And so that gave me enough motivation, I think there was enough there, to keep going. I didn't give up at that point. It was just enough to keep going. And that's how I've been running ever since. There's just enough interest that I think over time, if I keep my customers happy, that they'll talk to their peers who are likely podcasters as well. And if I can make my customers successful in their goals, reaching more listeners and converting more listeners to supporters or customers, then it's going to spread by word of mouth. And that's the thesis I have in my head. I'm not going to worry so much about the acquisition rate right now, like how many folks are signing up and becoming customers within a month. But if I can get one consistently every couple of weeks, and I can keep the retention rate very high, then I think over time it should pay off. So that's the long-term mentality I've been working on.
Oh, fantastic. So it's more about quality than just quantity, I'm guessing.
Right now, yeah, I don't have the means to blast any messaging through advertising. So it's just quality, one customer at a time, understanding their goals for the app and helping them achieve those goals in a really intimate way. Because it's just myself right now. I am the sole entrepreneur, operator of the business.
Oh, wow. So actually that then brings me on to, how did you get the business going? So I assumed you had a team around you of developers, or was that very much yourself doing everything?
Well, no. So initially, I'm not a developer myself by trade. I don't have that skill set. So in the beginning, I did raise a little bit of money from family and friends, just a seed amount, in order to hire an agency. So that was the initial investment in hiring an agency to build the MVP app for me. And that, looking back, that was a big mistake. That was a lot of money that it didn't go down the drain, but I didn't end up with an app that I could launch. It wasn't of the quality and performance that I needed for it to be. But that was a journey. It's not, I wouldn't do it that way again, but I don't regret having started the journey that way, because it really invested myself personally, emotionally into the process. And even now, I'm not ever going to give up, because I have to return my investors something for their trust in me. So it's a great way to stay invested, by pulling friends and family along with myself in the journey. But another great learning through the process was looking for a tech co-founder, finding folks, building a team, working with them for a little while, seeing how we can work together, seeing if we can build a business together. And then as our lives change and as the product changes, the team moves on as well. And my co-founders have moved on as well. So at one point there were 3 or 4 of us on the team, but now it's just me for the most part. And I do have a not a co-founder, but a tech partner, a former coworker of mine who I still talk with every week, and he's engaged in the project, but we're not co-founders technically. So that's also been a journey and a process of learning over the past 2 or 3 years.
Fantastic. So John, talking about learning and learning from your mistakes, if somebody were in your shoes now, thinking about launching either a tech product or some other product, but really starting off that journey in entrepreneurship, what would be those 2 or 3 big lessons learned that you'd like to share with them? Those sort of pitfalls that you probably want to avoid?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the first thing I'd want to encourage them to do is to spend the time upfront to really niche down and get a clear picture of who their target customer is. Who is that target user? And get to as detailed a profile or persona as you can. Is that person male or female? Does that person own a business or not? Even what age they are? Who is that person? And give them a name if you can, so you have a clear picture of who that person is. And that's quite difficult to do. So spend the time up front doing that. I'd say get to know that person. Once you know who they are, get to know them personally. So reach out to people like that persona and have conversations like we are having now with them, as many as you can. I'm sure as an entrepreneur, you have a product in mind already, because that's how I'm more product driven. I'm solution driven. I've got this idea. It's going to work. Now, what's the problem that the solution is going to fit into? We tend to fall into the trap of coming up with solutions and then searching for a problem to fit that solution. So I'd really encourage folks to realize that trap and kind of step out of it and go back to the customer, identify the customer, get to know them, get to know what their goals are. What are they trying to do as related to the area that I'm interested in? I'm the entrepreneur. I'm sure I've got an interest in a particular area, whether it's podcasting, maybe the production side, maybe it's the listening side. Maybe it's some area. I've got a personal interest in that area. How does my target customer and their goals as it relates to my interest area, what are those goals? And then take the time to get to know, like, where are their pain points in achieving those goals? So all that upfront work of getting to know that customer, getting to know that user, what are their goals? What are their pain points? And then taking that information and coming up with solutions, ideating on solutions to hit those top pain points. You've got to prioritize those pain points first. Which ones are giving them the most trouble in achieving their goals? And address that one, because what's the point of trying to address a minor pain point? You want to address the major pain points of your target customers. So go after those top priority pain points with solutions you think will address those adequately. And then it's a conversation. Bring those solutions to the customer. Are they actually meeting those pain points? And through that conversation, that back and forth, that solution is going to get sharper and sharper. Once you have a concept for a solution, then mock that up into something visual, something tangible that folks can look at, read about, understand, and see. So that could be a landing with some visual illustrating in as realistic detail as you can that solution. And then that's the point that I started at in the beginning. I had a landing page with that solution and I tried to get that in front of as many people as I could. Now that you understand who your customer is and you've got a visual to put in front of them, get it in front of them and see if they're really interested. And to gauge interest, I wouldn't just go on signups, but I would, if I could, try to get them to buy something even. At that stage, have them give you their credit card, so they're purchasing or pre-ordering the thing you're trying to build, because there's nothing speaks louder to me than an actual purchase. And all that can be done through a website. Websites are far cheaper to build than actual products, applications, software products. So start there, start cheap, and do all that legwork upfront before you think you need to raise money and invest in building a software product. Because building a software product is a lot of work. It's very expensive, and even more so to maintain it going forward is no joke. It's something that I couldn't do, and which is why at this point I was lucky enough to find a third-party vendor that can help me run the business. And they're a software company. They have the means and the resources and the people to maintain a software platform. And I'm a beneficiary of all that by being an agency. I can use their platform to serve my customers in an agency model. And I think serving customers, like actually manually serving customers, is a great way to get to know them and get to nurture that relationship and be aware of problems that may come up that may be better solved with a product solution down the road. So I think having a service business, I think, is a great advantage and a great way to get to know and nurture that understanding with my target customers who I want to keep serving going forward. And there may be a software product that better meets their needs than a service business could. And so that's bottom line, get to know your customers and get to know them and stay in touch with them. Build that relationship, because that's where the opportunities will come from.
Oh, fantastic. No, great advice there. I think it's all good and us getting excited about an idea and starting to build it, adding all these great features when actually we've not understood, is that even needed? And that can often trip many people up. So I'm glad you said that, because my background was very much around business analysis and product ownership. And I think lessons learned the hard way, that actually let's start with the customer before we all get excited about something. So really good advice. One question that came to mind there as you were talking that through was, as an entrepreneur or a founder of a product or service, how important is it that you are passionate about that particular thing? You know, I sometimes hear people say, oh, you know, we can make loads of money by doing this, or that would be a great idea. No one's ever done that before, but they may never have ever been in that environment or that domain or that area before. How important is it that you are passionate about the thing you're building?
I think for me, I've come to the place where I think it's all important, because it takes too much work and too much time to make anything successful, whether it's a podcast or it's a business or even your job. To be the best at anything, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And the only way to sustain that kind of investment of time and energy is if you're naturally interested in it, I believe. So like, I've thought about this quite a bit. I think there are naturally very smart people. And when you're younger and you're going through the system, when you're going through school, there are folks that will get A's because they're just naturally smarter and they're maybe more conscientious. They'll get their work done, and they may end up in a career path because it's just opened up to them. And they haven't done the hard work of figuring out where are their natural interests. You can get so far with natural ability, but I think at the higher end of the profession or of the field that you're going into, you're going to find people, you can't outwork someone who doesn't feel like what they're doing is work. It's impossible to like outwork somebody who enjoys what they're doing. So that's the competitive advantage that I see raises like the cream to the top. The best folks, the people who are the best at what they do, I believe really enjoy what they do, and that's the way they've been able to outcompete and outwork everyone else. So if you're very intelligent, but you're in a field where you don't have a natural interest, you're going to be outworked because it's going to feel like work to you, whereas for others, it's not going to feel like work to them. And so that's where I think being an entrepreneur, it's a huge advantage to really be interested, naturally curious, and really excited about what you're building and the customers you're serving, because it's a lot of work. Most businesses fail. Fact. So in order to have a chance, even I think, to build a successful business, I think you've got to be naturally interested in it, because that's the only way you're going to outwork everyone else.
Oh, I love that. I love that. The only way you're going to outperform someone is, you know, if you're passionate about the thing that you do and it doesn't feel like work. That's a really nice way of putting it. Well, folks, that's all for this particular episode. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us today and listening to the podcast. But above all, I want to thank John Lee for his time. So John, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paddy.